Labour will be pretty pissed off that the whole narrative that they're trying to control has been completely ripped apart by Elon Musk. Like they had all these plans they want to do, and now at Christmas, it wasn't on their agenda to deal with this, and now they have to do it. And it's everyone in the bloody country cares about this. By the way, everyone in the country has cared about this for a long time. I'm firmly of the belief that part of the spirit that animated the August riots after the alleged Axel Rudakubana, let's say this, not the alleged, after the Southport killing of those 3 young girls, part of the spirit that animated the riots that followed was that our girls are still being killed and attacked, and they are being, and this long time they've been killed, and it's not just screaming gangs, it's various terrorist attacks. I mean, we've had 95 Brits killed by Islamists since 2005, and of all the horrors, the Ariana Grande Manchester Arena attack in 2017, that was our young girls again. The horror of the Southport killing was like, it wasn't just a suicide bomb. It was the most heinous, cold-blooded murder one can imagine. So it just triggered the imagination of so many people. It's like, we've had enough. By the way, it happened in Knowsley. It happened in Knowsley in 2023, I think January, February, Asylum Hotel. There was a Syrian asylum seeker there who was caught on video making some sort of inappropriate pass at a young teenage girl. The video went viral. All the media, again, denying it, trying to cover it up. Even if you try and look it up, it's only certain media that GB News covered it. GB News has been fantastic for all of this. Thank God, and for Charlie Peters as well. Superb. Yeah. If you are interested in this topic, follow Charlie Peters, because every day since this is broken, he's been interviewing different victims and the families and getting their voices out, proper voice for the voiceless. Yeah. Now, in Knowsley, you look up exactly the sequence of events of what happened. If you watch the mainstream, if you look it up in the mainstream media, The Guardian, they'll say far-right riots. But what they won't tell you is that before then, there had been this video, which you can find the video, it's online, and then everyone was pissed off, went to the police. The police didn't do it. I think they maybe found someone and then let him go. But basically, they did not go and deal with the problem. At that point, then there were riots. Now, there is a protocol, is that when there's an Islamist attack, wherever it is, across Europe, you say, it's an Islamist attack, we're going to deal with the problem. That is, by the way, how you deal with all of these problems. The people in charge have to say, we know exactly what it is, no political correctness. You say, this is the problem, we're on it, and you deal with it. And that's another problem with Southport, is that there's a sense of like, what is this? We're not saying this, we're not calling it what it is. Now, we haven't had the trial. We probably can't say because of sub judice laws too much about that case. Perhaps we shouldn't go too far.
Well, we can say what the public obviously knows, which is that this was Axel Rudakubana. This will probably come out, this video, just before the trial's heating up, which I've been told was deliberately done at the same time. I don't know how much that's conspiratorial. The same time as Trump's inauguration,
January 20th.
Yeah, to sort of hide.
Well, look, okay. On that, is it conspiratorial? When was it that the Merseyside police announced that on top of his other charges, he would also be charged with having Al Qaeda materials, and he'll be charged with having ricin in his home? That was timed exactly with when Labour put out their budget. And it was later reported by the BBC that Keir Starmer, or I forget who it was, maybe it was Yvette Cooper, knew of the charges being brought by Merseyside police several weeks before then. But let's check the language. Knew of the charges. If it is true that Axel Rudakubana had Al Qaeda material at his home, then the Home Office and the Prime Minister, they will have known, if not the same day, within 48 hours. They knew. If it's true that he had that stuff.
Yeah, I think many of us, again, we have to be so careful because of the upcoming trial. But I think what's been reported in the news, it sounds impossible to even imagine that they didn't know, at least within the first few days and probably the first 48 hours, as you say. And so to then go and blame the far right again, I don't even know what kind of strategy that is in terms of bringing people on side and trying to get votes and things, because I don't know how that's a vote winner. You just pissed off the whole working class in particular. Not that the working class were the only people rioting, but I imagine it was more so.
So Keir Starmer said in his press conference last week that those who want a national inquiry are jumping on the far-right bandwagon. Well, 76% of the country want a national inquiry. Does that mean that 76% of the country are far-right?
And this is relative to the rest of the world, a relatively leftist country, isn't it? I mean, it's particularly compared to the US, particularly compared to places like South Korea at the moment, it's quite far on the right. People in England really, compared to America, they're quite lefty. The idea that 70% could be like far right-wing bigots is absurd.
Well, it's obviously absurd that according to these people, everyone's bloody far right. As long as I've been covering the grooming gang story, there's always people coming out in the comments saying far right, far right, far right. I'm sure you've been called far right for something or other. It's lost all meaning, that term. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I saw a great video. I don't know who it was by, but it was sort of showing the way that the people who are very far on the left and the people who are very far on the right, often quite authoritarian, don't seem to understand there's actually a centre. So those people on the far left will just say anything right of them is far right. People on the far right will say anything left of them is woke and far left. And a lot of us are just trying to say, well, hang on, we're not calling for like murder of anyone who's different from us or racist or anything like that. But we do want to have an inquiry and actually, find out what's actually happening with the grooming scandal.
You have to have an inquiry. I mean, Jess Phillips, ironically called our safeguarding minister, was the one who didn't want an inquiry into. Who turned down? It took 4 months to turn down the people of Oldham's request for a local inquiry carried out by Oldham, an inquiry into what was going on at Oldham. Oldham had an inquiry published in 2022, which did state that the young girls had been neglected and let down, but there was no evidence of any sort of cover-up. Now, you can't have the people who were accused of a crime or any wrongdoing be in charge of the own inquiry into the problem, obviously, not least as one of the members of Oldham Council has been charged with being one of the grooming gang perpetrators.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. So we need to have a national inquiry. The GB News have found that this is going on in at least 50 towns and cities up and down the country. And look, we can talk about inquiry. Ultimately, what we need is justice and redemption, and for the girls, I mean.
Absolutely.
And that's the priority. And I think to get that, there needs to be an inquiry, and then we need to talk seriously about the punishment for the perpetrators. This cannot happen again.